Good morning once again. Agnieszka Justicia, the 1st of Honestia, the 6th of March 2020. This is the third recording in the series of recordings constituting an update on the Noble Kingdom of Honestian, formerly called, or previously called, the Noble Kingdom of Agnipolitania. Not to associate with my enemies abusing the name Agnipolitania in their attack on me and my kingdom and the whole spiritual realm, maybe. So this is the third recording, and finally we are moving to the latest developments, which are the key areas of academic work of the Noble Kingdom of Honestia 2020, and these were designed on the 28th of January 2020. I mentioned them in the first recording, so let me repeat that. So 1, reading literature. Oh, and once I'm here, actually in the second recording, I did not read as it was written at the time. I was still putting it as teaching reading literature. That was actually the time when I moved from teaching literature to reading literature, considering still both, and now I'm at reading literature and I see what develops out of it. So 1, reading literature, the Honestian approach, the faculty of fine literature and art. 2, the spiritual history of humankind, the faculty of histories. 3, new romanticism, the faculty of fine literature and arts. 4, the Honestian way of life, the order of chastity. 5, the non-fall and spread of communism, the faculty of histories. 6, great cultural projects, the faculty of superb education. So let's move to reading literature. We have 4 main areas here that need to be developed. The first one is the theory of literature. So first of all, philosophy, then literary devices, etc., other works on literature, and linguistics. The acquisition of applicable knowledge in these areas is vital for the start. Then we have 2, realities in works of literature, and here I have the point of different categories. So overall, my thinking departs from what we are normally taught. I'm thinking of an example right now. Going back to my original ideas, at the time when I wanted to write my MA thesis on the subject of teaching literature, prepare a program for such a course with all theoretical formal definitions and developments of methods. I considered The Castle by Kafka, The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, these were the first inspirations. And this is still vague, but if you think of those three books, then you can think of a code. And I have not traveled further. So this is to give you an idea. It always starts with an idea, and then as one develops all, one's own vision, at one point there's chaos, and then one can superimpose one's own order. So this is more or less what I'm talking about. Three basic realities. And here I have sacred books and languages. So this is also a new development. I decided that as we are on the planet Earth, these are actually our starting points. Perhaps there should be a bit more, perhaps there should be also ancient rituals. That's a new thought right now, because sacred books take us to the time when our culture was relatively developed. We were already civilized. And I believe that certain things that had come before are also important. This thought somehow connects with what's in our current political speak concerning the European Union and the values of the European Union. So some use the argument of Europe being Christian. So, they talk about our Christian roots. And then I believe the left wing, reaching for the ancient times, even if perverting it, have a good laugh on it, because the European roots are not Christian, actually. So that's more or less the idea I have right now concerning starting with the sacred books. So perhaps I should look at something prior to that too. But as the program goes now, it starts with sacred books, because these orders are always present, even if a writer neglects it. All the reality around has been informed by the order. And then languages. Again, a language is an order. 4 methods within the approach. So obviously I will continue the thinking in terms of conceptual defining metaphors, as I did in my MA thesis, which is also available in YouTube. That was the analysis of Othello from the perspective of the metaphor life is a war as the defining metaphor. And of course there can be other metaphors, so this is one of the methods. But I also use visualization and simple methods as drawing, techniques. Actually, drawing would be a technique to have a better hold on a setting or focus points, attention points, and drama from Brian Way. Apart from all those methods that I'm not aware of yet, and I use. Some of them can be pretty conventional. I'm not trying to create a novelty I'm just trying to create an abundance. The spiritual history of humankind. So it starts with, there are 6 categories here. 1, sacred orders. 2, empires. 3, the law. 4, the humanities and the sciences. 5, broken covenants. And 6, resolutions. And again, the point I made concerning the previous program is right here too, but I have not considered it thoroughly yet, so I'm leaving it out, just you know, put it on the margin that it's still to be thought of and considered. Sacred orders, and here there are sacred books and development of religions. So I think it's quite clear. But again, to give you some idea, for instance, in Christianity, I think it is very important to look at the development of the church and to have this clear idea of the faith that, well, again, we have 2 levels here. So we have the problem of the Bible. The assumption is that this is the Word of God. But then what was considered valid for the Holy Bible was a choice made by man. And even if inspired by God, still there can be the human factor, for instance the male factor. I have read somewhere that Saint Madeleine has her gospel too. She happens to be my patroness by my 3rd Christian name, confirmation. So one level is that we have the Holy Book, and we take it as true, and then we have the Church. So and this is another level, what the Church has been doing since. 2, empires. I believe in the spiritual quality of an empire. So I put it as the spirit and histories. And the spirit that creates the empire. Those empires we have known differ from each other. And then we have the history. Three, the law, legal orders. So this is this higher level. It's like a sacred book. And then we have the law and the lie. I think it's clear. But well, you know, for instance, the latest law on taxes would be the law and the lie, rather than the legal order. But what we have in our constitutions is a legal order. What's underneath? And it goes further. For instance, the criminal code of law in Poland. I'm not sure if it's true about other countries too, other legal orders. But you have the creation of the law and the question of innocence and guilt. So if you have this, what do you call it, an article or a paragraph, I don't remember right now, and the way it's constructed is that you move through the first lines and finally you arrive at the last line, the last part that says that actually the decision whether the person is guilty or innocent depends entirely on the judge, no matter the evidence you have, is an aspect of the legal order. Because you can have a different legal order where it does not depend, it's not relative. A guilty person is guilty and an innocent person is innocent, and no consideration can change it. 4. The humanities and the sciences. 5. Broken covenants. And 6. Resolutions. So broken covenants, for instance, for me, the 11th of September 2001 was the case of a broken covenant. And obviously, what we are going through now, which I call the civilization change, what's been done to human bodies is a broken covenant. And 6 resolutions, so some final decisions. And that corresponds to a manifesto, an outline of my manifesto. That I decided to create some time ago. I wrote up the outline on the 18th of March 2019. So to make it clear, let me read it to you. So 1, it has 3 parts. 1, the ontological basis. 2, the spiritual history of humankind. And 3, re-establishment. So in the ontological basis we have 1, the creation of humankind in traditional religions. 2, first laws, the original covenant. 3, what is humanity? 4, our earthly realm. And then the spiritual history of humankind. So 1, the road we have traveled. 2, the culture we have lived, the culture we have developed. 3, the conflicts we have created. 4, the laws we have broken. And in reestablishment, there's the reestablishment of 1, culture, education, and politics. New Romanticism. So 2 parts, Romanticism and New Romanticism. For Romanticism, it's 1, the phenomenon. 2, the variety of Romanticisms worldwide. 3, specifics. 4, history. And 5, criticism. I think this is quite clear. And New Romanticism, 1, definition. 2, developments for all areas of life. And 3, resolutions. One of the most important characteristics of the Romantic thinking is its comprehensiveness. So the areas that were the inspiration of changes at the time had an impact on all areas of life and actually related to all areas of life. The Honestian way of life. 1, traditional sacred books, halls and selections. In creating that, one must I must, I believe, quote as much as possible, because I believe I'm dealing with the Word of God. So that's the Word, and then my response to it. But first, there's the Word. 2. The literature of light, selections. So I believe that some literature, not only the literature that is devoted to religion, like the Dream of the Rod, the ancient English literature, but also other literature, not to be confused with positive thinking or anything of the kind, or some modern cults, or I don't know, even the modern spirit, children of light, or something like that. No, what we have developed throughout ages actually carries the divine light. 3. The light through fine arts, including music. Again, horse and selections. In the literature of light we have selections. 4. The philosophies of light, selections. 5. The life of light, horse and selections. 6. Other readings in light, selections. The non-foreign aspect of communism. And this is my thesis on history. First, philosophy, from human rights to transhumanism. So that needs to be traced. What has happened? The concept of the human rights is a right-wing concept, actually, because it asks for human dignity as the dignity of God's child, of the God's child, and it comes from the divine. But then we also have to consider the fact that the human rights and animal rights were first introduced in India by Ashoka. 2. Wars. The military. So the first one is the military. World Wars 1 and 2 towards 3. I believe we are heading for the World War 3, unless it will be achieved otherwise. But I believe that there is a need for the World War 3 from the perspective of the communist thinking. The case of Poland, the wedge through National Socialism and communism. So it is very important to understand it. The Nazis are not the right wing, and throughout our education we have been taught this is the right wing, this is the extremist right wing. Well, it is not. As the name suggests, it is the left wing, it is National Socialism. So Poland was actually in the wedge, under the wedge, from Germany and Russia. And the global perspective. This is also the problem of the European people. When they were celebrating the fall of communism, there was Tiananmen in China. And since then, communism was on the rise. 2. The finance, takeovers. The case of China on the rise. So, the investment. If you think of the United States and think of it in terms of a color. I know this is not politically correct, but do think of it in terms of color. So could you forward the thesis that the white man is a slave to the yellow master in the United States? 3. The politics. Redefinitions. In the case of the European Union, first redefinitions. So there are many, but what did I have in mind particularly then? Well, the obvious one is that we have to deal with is love, but I had something else in mind. It basically has to, freedom, right, freedom. What we start with is freedom. What is freedom? The case of the European Union, the same ideas and you speak. So I am saying that the creation of the European Union had the purpose of introducing socialism and communism to Europe, but in a tricky way. The law, that is war number 4. Annihilation of the former normative power through global criminality, death laws. And my case here is a critical case wherein the innocent person has been criminalized, both definitions, by the world powers. So all are involved in that crime, and this changes the reality because we are dealing with that loss right now. 3. Stabilization of power. So this is what the communists have been doing. 1. Universities. 2. Judicial systems. 3. The mass media. 4. Business, and this is obvious in Poland. 4. New territories, and this is also what communists have been doing. 1. Fashion. 2. Entertainment. 3. Religious orders. So, Joseph Ratzinger wrote a book about introduction to Christianity, and he points out the difference between faith and Christianity and Marxist Christianity. 4. Technology. So the Assange movement, but not only that, more than that, because this is not only Julian Assange. 5. Literature and arts. Well, the Polish Nobel Prize winner. And then I'm running out of time again, but perhaps I can cover great cultural projects too, without too many elaborations. 1. The language. Vocabulary, grammar, conventions, forms, and developments. So etymology is important too, and the change of meaning is valid. 2. Meaning of grammar. 2. The mythology. 1. Presences. 2. Themes. 3. Relations. So who appears, and then what themes are considered important, and then what are the relations between the presences, themes, and people. 3. Arts. Themes, forms, significances. 4. Religions. The source. 2. Sacred books. 3. Rituals and rites. And 4. Manifestations. So, this is Fatima, for instance, where Fatima connects with Islam, obviously, and it has not been talked about at all. 5. The history. the spirit, the greatness. So what are the moments of greatness of a nation or people? The development, relations, and crimes. So you know, the Polish honor, how honorable is Poland right now. And what crimes have been committed by other cultures. 6. The culture. The uncles, the life, the records, meaning what has been written or otherwise recorded. 7. Literature. First creations, the development lines, the life captured, the life opened. So the text both captures some part of life and makes it immortal, but also opens some vista. And philosophies. So it does not need to be a work of philosophy. It can be a literary text or even a poem, and it's full of philosophy that can be read out of the text. The law. This is 8. The law. Ontological assumptions. 2. Fundamental values. 3. Areas defined and regulated. So what has not been defined, what has not been regulated, apart from what has been defined and regulated. 4. The conceptual framework, terminology. Or again, what terms do we have and what terms are missing. 5. Descriptions. So what does it tell us about the specific culture? How does it present the specific culture? And finally, working principles inherent in the code. So the example of the criminal code I quoted makes the point quite clear. I'm not sure if it's still recording. Well, I hope it is, but something is wrong here. I hope I'm not deleting something right now. Let me check it before I complete the recording. Well, it might be I have run out of time.